Hello, my name is Selam-Peace, and in today's presentation, I'm going to be presenting on the topic of does privacy matter? The following are the points that I'll be going through in today's presentation. To start off, why does privacy matter? Privacy allows us to negotiate who we are and how we want to interact with the world around us, and to define those relationships on our own terms. Privacy matters because it's about being free. Privacy isn't luxury or a side thought. Privacy is important because it gives us space to be ourselves, free of judgment. Privacy tends to not exist in countries or places where freedom doesn't take place or freedom is not in practice, which does not mean just because countries such as the United States or countries that are way developed have freedom doesn't mean they full on have privacy, because the definition of privacy that we have in the 21st century, where technology is center of everything that we do, is different. And the definition of privacy that we had 10, 20 years ago is different to the definition of privacy that we have today. But when compared to countries such as North Korea, where all they do is monitored with mass surveillance, their privacy and the privacy in the United States or many other countries is different. For instance, an example would be every aspect every aspect of a person's existence in North Korea is monitored. This oversight of citizens has extended beyond wired microphones and wiretapping of fixed line and mobile phones. Microphones are now being used outdoors to pick up conversations. This is a general sense that it is dangerous to engage in any kind of conversation with people out in public. This is why privacy matters. Privacy matters because it protects our freedom of thought. And we have as human beings, we have the right to have the freedom of thought and speak whatever we want and express how we feel. And so if we don't have the freedom of thought, we don't have privacy. Followed by the second point, privacy is privacy when living in the age of data exploitation. So living in the 21st century where technology is surrounding us in all the ways and all the things that we do, we are living in the age of data exploitation. Privacy has become more essential the more we live. Privacy is under threat due to how data and technology are being used. The way in which we can be tracked and identified have exploded alongside the types and scales of information available about us. In a 2019 interview with the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, was asked how his company was causing invasions of privacy. As you can see, as we all know, our phones and our tablets and our laptops, we all access the internet and we search and read and hear and watch different things, and we don't really think about us being monitored, but we're actually being monitored. If someone wants to know what Selam-Peace is doing, they can actually just search my name and go through the different things that I've been doing, that I've been watching, that I've been reading at a particular time, a particular day. And so just because you're not being like someone is not right next to you does not mean you're not being watched. In addition to how you have passwords, I for example, I have passwords on my phone. Doesn't mean just because I have a password on my phone doesn't mean the people that are high up in the data science studies don't have access to my phone, because they do have access to my phone. Or when we have our locations on for Snap or like online shopping or different things that we do, or GPS, we do have our own locations on, which means that helps for people to track our information. So just because we have passwords does not really help. And so the response to the question that Eric Smith was asked was, I quote, "If you are doing something that you don't want other people to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place." Well, Eric Smith himself did have passwords on his phone, So what do we think about that? Following that, Glenn Greenwald on a TED Talk on October 10th, 2014, had explained how he had asked people that had the mentality that Eric Smith had to send him or email him their passwords on their phones, their email addresses, their different apps to their doors, because he said, if you don't have anything to hide and if you have passwords, send it to me so that I can access it. And fun fact, nobody ever got back to him. He has never received a single email about people's passwords. And so privacy isn't about having a secret to hide, but it's about having freedom and not worry about being watched. We all have something to hide and judgments and criticisms that we don't want other people to know. Privacy protects us from being tortured and ensures our rights are being protected and respected. Followed by privacy is having the choice, establishing limits and boundaries on who has access to our places, things, as well as our communications and informations. It also allows us to negotiate who we are and how we want to interact with the world around us. We don't really have choices, do we? Especially now living in the age of technology. Even though it's hard in the modern and civilized world we live in, passwords are actually not enough to keep our privacies. Privacy protects our freedom of choice. Privacy is how we seek to protect ourselves and society against Privacy is how we seek to protect ourselves and society against arbitrary and unjustified use of power. By controlling what we can be aimed to exert control over data and ultimately all aspects of our lives. Glenn Greenwald had perfectly, in a beautiful way, had explained how mass surveillance actually affects the human being or the human race. I quote Glenn Greenwald saying, mass surveillance creates imprison in the mind. And so the idea of being watched, the idea of being followed and monitored 24/7 without you knowing, you can physically move around and do things and do your activities, do your daily chores and work and studies. But at the back of your mind, you are always being watched. So you have to take care of what you're searching, what you're doing, what you're watching. So it's always an imprisonment for your mind, which is very fascinating for me to read that. And last but not least, privacy is actually a right. Privacy is a right that, as such, also enables our enjoyment of our rights, and interference with our privacy often provides the getaway to the violation of the rest of our rights. From being discriminated against, privacy ensures we're all recognized as people. And so, like we previously mentioned in the other points above, especially the first point that we mentioned, privacy does come from the freedom of thought. Having the freedom of thought, the freedom of speech is how we get to privacy. So if a person does not have or isn't given the right to the freedom of thought, the freedom of speech, they cannot have privacy. And so privacy is a right, and it's a right that comes with being human. And so it is a human right. Privacy is a human right, and everybody deserves to have a privacy. Thank you.